Welcome to a brief overview of GEAC, the General Education Assessment Committee. A bit of history. GEAC was created in 2004 by Provost Larry Robinson in response to the new principles of accreditation adopted by what was then SACS, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. SACS evolved recently into SACS-COC, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on College. Different name, different brand, but does essentially the same thing. GEAC, since its inception, has had four primary charges. First is establishing and streamlining a systematic process for the assessment of the general education system, hence GEAC. Second, the committee is tasked with identifying college-level knowledge and competencies for, you guessed it, the general education program that are linked to FAMU's mission and goals and Florida State accountability systems. And of course, since it is the assessment committee, it is charged with developing an assessment plan for general education program. And finally, fourth, with monitoring the implementation of this planned assessment activities. So those are the four primary tasks of GEAC, which is creating the process of assessment, identifying the competencies that will be assessed in accord with the mission of FAMU and Florida State accountability, developing a plan for this, and then monitoring the plan being put into place. So what does GEAC actually do for FAMU? Well, first, the committee assesses four competencies within gen ed courses and across the university. These four are communication, critical thinking, quantitative reasoning, and social ethical reasoning. Also, GEAC is charged with collecting this data and preparing documentation for SACS-COC accreditation in accord with Core Requirement 2.7.3 and Comprehensive Standard 3.5.1. So how does GEAC do what it does? Doing what it does involves the following main things. Firstly, GEAC is involved in artifact and data collection and assessment. The artifacts are not cool things like the Ark of the Covenant or, say, Excalibur, but rather mundane artifacts, papers from classes, tests, etc. And the data collection takes various forms, most commonly being submitted through our online form for providing data. And then, of course, the artifacts are assessed using various rubrics appropriately, and the data is also assessed as well. There are also focus groups that are conducted to get sort of more in-person feedback from students. It's anecdotal, but is often quite useful to get a picture of students' perceptions of gen ed. We also conduct surveys, primarily of students and their perception of gen ed, but we also survey the faculty and advisors in order to get relevant information from them. We also have two primary standardized tests that we get data from: the Critical Thinking Assessment Test, CAT, and the ETS, the Educational Testing Service Proficiency Profile. And then we engage in metadata analysis to get an overall picture of how things are going across the gen ed in terms of student performance. Artifact assessments typically look like this. We have a certain number of artifacts that we evaluate, and then what we do is assign each particular artifact a score of competent or not competent, or it might be broken down in more detail with a rating between 1 and 5, and then the data is, assimilated and collected, and then we get an overall report. For example, here is shown the written communication from fall 2017, the draft results, and then the a more detailed breakdown of the results. For the survey, we get a report from now from Qualtrics, and it provides data for, say, the student self-assessment and their perception, And we, of course, get different data from faculty surveys. For the CAT, this is an example from the past, and it gives us results from pre- and post-tests, which are useful. The ETS is especially useful because it gives us not only data from FAMU, which we can look at across the years, and it also gives us a comparison to national averages to see how our students are performing relative, yearly, comparing year to year, but also looking at how students are performing relative to students across the United States. Focus groups, as I mentioned, tend to be anecdotal. We have a small number of people expressing their views, but they do provide sort of a way of getting more individual feedback from students. And the way it's done is the focus group is transcribed, and then someone on the committee goes through the transcriptions and then selects sort of like key points to focus on. Now, while GEAC has many things that it does, one of our sort of ongoing focuses is our data improvement plan. And again, we do many things, but kind of an overarching focus now is improving our data. And this involves attempting to simplify the process of data collection, because this makes it easier and increases the likelihood that people will participate. Secondly, we're focusing on automating the process as much as possible. Our ideal, of course, would be sort of a future version, would be that we would have our assessment software, such as Nuventive, automatically pull data from faculty courses where they've volunteered and agreed to do this, where it pulls assessment data, where the faculty don't have to take any special effort. The data is simply extracted and analyzed, and we get a report at the end of the year of student performance in each of the competency areas. And again, this is something for the future, but it's something we are currently working towards. It's currently being tested in other schools, but we intend to apply it to Gen Ed soon. Not like the fully automated one, but a gradual increase in automation. And finally, another critical focus is motivation, in order to encourage faculty to participate in gathering this data, until, of course, we have the process fully automated, in which case we just have to convince faculty to allow us to gather data automatically from their classes. But until then, of course, we'll be having to focus on motivating faculty to participate. And of course, even if it's fully automated, we would still need some things that people have to do, at least hopefully until we are all replaced by the robots. So what can GEAC do for you as faculty, administrators, students, etc.? Well, being very practical about it, one of our key functions is helping maintain FAMU's accreditation. As I mentioned earlier, we have responsibility for two key components of accreditation, and in the past accreditation cycle we did very well. It was challenging. We were asked many detailed questions, but we did from the standpoint of the people doing the accreditation or the assessment, they said we did an excellent job. And we intend to keep doing this excellent job to preserve FAMU's accreditation into the future. We can also provide data about students and courses, which can be of use to you. Now, of course, what can you do for GEAC in sort of level of effort? The first thing is simply allow GEAC to acquire artifacts and data from your courses on Canvas, which, as we work on automation, we'll be able to do more of this. Secondly, inform your students about GEAC surveys and share links with them. Thirdly, provide artifacts or data to GEAC for analysis. Fourth, assess artifacts for GEAC. And finally, especially if you're a faculty member going up for tenure promotion, you could join a GEAC. And I do write letters of evidence of service that are very useful for university service proof for tenure and promotion. So thank you, and I hope you'll contribute to GEAC's data collection, or maybe you join the committee, and stay safe, and I'll see you in the future.